Hello and welcome back to Go Create Craft. I had to think then what I was going to say. So I've been asked a few questions recently about which cutting machine to go with, whether we should be going for the Cricut, the Silhouette or the ScanNCut, and what the differences are between them. And I thought, well, I could write a blog post that probably extends between here and next Christmas about the differences between them and which one you should go for, because everybody's choice is going to be different depending on their type of craft they want to do. So I thought it might actually be easier to do this as a bit of a video so you can actually see the machines in action, and we can discuss how they all stack up against each other. So without too much further ado, cutting machines. So first of all, you have two main types at the moment, and you have those that are based with a blade and those of you that are based with lasers. Now, lasers are great for your thicker materials, etching, anything that is going to need a little bit more oomph, and then you start heading into CNC machines and things like that. So if you are wanting to cut wood, thick board, or anything that is 3D, shall I say, in terms of etching, you are better off heading off towards a laser machine. And of course there is a cost comparison that goes with that. So although blade-based systems say that they can cut wood, what they actually mean is really thin, like wood veneers type materials that you can cut with scissors. So as a rule, if you can cut it with a pair of scissors, you can cut it with a blade, and you'll be fine with most of the systems, although I will get into that in a bit more detail later on in the video. So yes, thicker materials, head over to lasers, and at some point we'll get round to doing lasers again, maybe. So in terms of choosing which one of these, I want you to very much think on your individual process of crafting. So I will get into more detail in terms of how we actually work with these machines, but think of the type of craft that you'd like to do, how confident you are with a computer, and any design experience or computer experience that you can kind of transfer into your craft. Now, I say this with as much humility as I can. But when it comes to designing for cutters, they are very forgiving compared to if you're designing for dies. And I think that is a die you can use as a cut file. The opposite is not true, as I know from recent experience. So even if you think you have very little IT ability, that doesn't totally rule out what machine you can have. It does, however, indicate a direction that you may want to move into. So just something to consider. So let's get started with the Cricut. So I thought rather than having them in any particular order, I would go kind of alphabetically so that I'm not showing preferential treatment to a certain one that I usually cover in great depth. So starting off with the Cricut, you have four main machines to choose from. You have the Explorer, the Maker, which is the one you see here, the Joy, which is the little tiny one, and the Joy Xtra, which is slightly larger than the Joy but does have some additional features. Now, Cricut as a platform is particularly beginner friendly and most accessible to a wealth of users, not just in terms of how able you are to use the software, which I have open on the screen, but also in terms of getting the machines themselves. So you don't have to order online. You don't have to order through a particular platform to get it. You can order it from most online electronic suppliers. You can actually go to a store and actually go and see them being demonstrated. So in that sense, they are the most beginner accessible machines out there. Go see a demonstration, ask questions, and you'll be well away. When you're starting with your Cricut, you're going to download the software, which I already have set up, and you can see in the little desktop software thing. That's weird. Let's try and point upside down that way. There we go, down there. So the Cricut software is known as Design Space, and as you can see, when you first open it up, it's going to offer you Cricut access, and it's going to keep offering this to you until such time as you submit and buy it. But what I would say is, if this is your first ever cutting machine, you are probably going to find Cricut access worth buying into. It gives you access to hundreds of thousands of projects, files, fonts, and you'll be well away. Absolutely well away. And until such time you start to design your own, then, you know, you're going to find that it's nice and easy for you to go down that route. So let me see if I can just make that bigger for you. Where is it? Okay, so welcome to Design Space, and straight away you can see that we're going to be offered lots of options here. Now, I've already connected my machine. If you're connecting a brand new machine, it's going to take you through that connection process, and it's going to get you to cut a little Cricut logo. Now, straight out the gate, I can tell you I went wrong on this one. Because there was me thinking, because I actually borrowed this off a friend, so there was me thinking I could just put some vinyl on the mat, stick that in, that'll do. No, it needs to be done from smart material, otherwise you're going to cut your cutting mat. Yeah, did that one. So cut your Cricut from your smart material that you have in the box, and then you can get onto this screen here. And you are going to see that we've got lots and lots of projects for you to do. So you have things that it classes as an image, which are basically individual files that you can just cut, add to your existing projects, and away you go. So it could be a sentiment, it could be a design icon, something like that. Then you have projects which are a little bit more involved. So if we pick one, let's go for tuck box. We click on it, it's going to come up with a description of what it is, and it's going to show you what files are being used as part of that project, and then you follow the instructions and away you go. So you've got edit a copy if you want to make it your own, or you can just make it. So if you are really starting out right at your very basics, you've got a little bit of a handhold to go, I just want to make it as is, I don't want to faff. So you can just literally go straight away and make it. Or as you get more confident, you're going to be able to just design your own. So this is the canvas view for Design Space. You still have access to projects in here. We have basic shapes, which as a beginner start to wanting to design your own things, basic shapes is typically where you're going to start. So you'll notice even in my ScanNCut book, I start you off with basic shapes. It's a nice easy place to start, and we're all not worrying about drawing and nodes and complicated things. Keep it nice and simple. You then have your images. So again, like I said, those are your basic little designs that you can add to another project. And as you go through, you're going to see that some of them have a little price up here. and that's how much to purchase that file to use in your projects. It's a one-time fee, pay it once, forget about it. If it has a little A for access just to the left of it, that means that if you are subscribing, so that monthly figure, then that is included, and while you are paying that monthly subscription, you'll have access to that file. If you stop paying, you lose access. Just something to bear in mind, that if at some point you're going to want to opt out of paying that monthly fee, it can affect your projects that you've already created. Text, nice and simple. Click it, it's going to turn up on the map, type it, move it, size it, and away you go. And it does have some unusual features too. So we have layouts. So if you're doing a project and you're wondering what size you should do it, this can be a really helpful way of getting your sizes right that isn't necessarily covered by all platforms. So this is quite unusual, and again, as a beginner, it really does hold your hand. Likewise, if you have multi-colours of materials, it's going to split it by colour and so on and so forth. So if you're doing full sheets of material, you haven't got to think, oh, I've got to do 5 different files for that, or turn layers on and off. Lots of different ways that you kind of get around it on other platforms. You don't need to do one here. So you can cut by colour. And another thing that I've put on my little list of things to discuss is matte and matteless cutting. So in terms of the Cricut, it can only matteless cut with their smart materials. So this is where essentially the material has a plastic back to it, where you can just run it through your machine. It's like cutting it on a cutting mat, but it's attached to your material. Is it the most innovative way of matteless cutting? No, because that's going to come later. But it works, and sometimes, you know, if you are working at speed, it speeds things up a little bit. Okay, so let's hop back on over to Cricut Cam. So I have the Maker here, and
Maker 4.
Maker 3. It's not even 4, it's 3. And you get to see straight away, lift the lid, it's going to open up nicely. And it does have, and I did turn it on, yeah. Power button just there. And the Maker 3 has 3 additional buttons here. If you have the Maker 4, there's no buttons there, it's just literally power on and away you go. You have a dual tool carriage, so the right hand one is your blade, and it's nice and easy to change that out. So it's just all done on a lever, pop it out, change the blade, and just lock it back in. Nice and simple. You have a pen holder on this side, but again, works on the same principle. And it's really useful having a two tool carriage. So instead of having to swap between tools when you're doing like a cut and a draw, you can do it all in one pass in here. So the differences between them. The Explore is very much if you're just wanting a basic cutter to get you kind of started, but you still want to be able to cut 12 by 12. Maker is if you want to get involved in more advanced cutting things, so things like the rotary blade that comes for the Maker actually has a little ratchet system at the top, so that you can actually have a blade that rotates by computer rather than just necessarily the direction the blade just happens to take at that moment. Which is important when we get to more complex files for the rotary cutter and some other tools as well. The Joy is perfect for if you just have a small space to work in and you just want to make some little sentiments or Card front is kind of the biggest that you can get on there. So it is...
It's limited to 6 inches, isn't it?
Yeah, it's limited to 6 inches. So just bear that in mind. In terms of width. 6 or 4?
6.
But yeah, it's dinky. It's kind of good for taking to a crop. So if you want to just have a little cutter that you can take with you, cut something out quick, and then carry on with the rest of your crafting, Joy is very much of that kind of speedy crafting ilk. Joy Xtra is that, but on steroids. So Joy Xtra is actually the one that I'm considering getting. So it's A4 width. You can do print and cut on it, which was what was important for me. And, you know, it's not as expensive as going for a full-blown maker, which the price difference between the platforms is quite vast. So if you are kind of planning which one to get for yourself, then you can be worried about budget this time of year. I did start off this video with the title of "What should Santa be bringing down your chimney?" So, pros of the Cricut platform: the ease of getting supplies, in terms of locations, shops. If you need to go and get a mat right now, you can go and do it with a Cricut. Definitely. I can think of probably at least 3 places that are close by that I can go and get a mat from. There are more tutorials and support than any other brand, you know, whether that support is in video tutorials, written tutorials, books, you name it. It's actually one of the reasons that I've kind of held off doing a Cricut book, is there is so many out there. Ease of use, definitely beginner friendly in terms of just variety of projects that you can get straight into, that it's going to kind of hold your hand through, especially with the positioning on the software. The variety of tools and blades, and that ratchet system that I said about in terms of rotating the blades as well. So that is mainly for the maker. But even the Explorer has a choice of blades that you can choose from, that will cover a variety of materials. And that 2-tool carriage, as I said, makes it easy to do things in one pass. The cons for me of the Cricut platform are the monthly subscription, which can be even for some of the most basic of shapes. The Cricut materials can be pricey and limits your choices in terms of matless cutting. You know, there's lots and lots of different vinyls out there, for instance, now, that you can't necessarily get as a smart material. The terms of use of the Design Space software can dissuade designers from working with the platform, just because it's one of these that you don't own what you put on there kind of things. So that's something to look into and see whether it works for your particular circumstances and situation. There's also no auto blade feature as such. You are still choosing a material when you go to actually make a project. So there you go. That's kind of a really whistle-stop tour into Cricut, and if you want me to do something a bit more in depth on it, please let me know in the comments. I'm probably going to have this here for a little bit longer, so I can always put together some videos for it. Have I forgotten anything? No. So, on to the scan and cut now. I just had the ribbing taken out of me for saying I'm doing this in alphabetical order and not doing the scan and cut first because of beef and rubber, but no. While we were up here, the scan and cut is called the scan and cut, the Cricut's called the Cricut, not the Maker. Who knows? It's one of those. So it's going in the middle. Tough. So the ScanNCut is the most versatile of the 3 platforms because it has the built-in scanner, which is a very big boon in lots of ways to be able to use the scanner. So we can use it to scan designs, drawings, but also to cut out printed items. So you don't necessarily have to get print to cut to be able to cut out printed media. It just means that you have to think a little bit more when you're designing for it. There's a variety of models out there, but you have 2 main families of machines. So you have the CM, which is the original, and you have the SDX, which are the newer models. The CMs don't have the autoblade. They tend to have fewer designs, and the scanner is a little bit lower specs, and also the tracing itself sometimes is not quite as advanced as it is in the SDXs. The SDXs have the autoblade, the higher spec scanner, and more designs, and also a little bit of improved functionality in terms of offsetting and things within the machine itself. All UK models have a scanner built in. If you are watching from other locations around the globe, there is one called the Design and Cut that does not have a scanner, and I think it has the model number of DC rather than a CM. So if you see one of those in the wild, always interested to see one. Most models have Wi-Fi capability, whereas the Cricut, I didn't mention, actually connects using Bluetooth rather than Wi-Fi. So that's just something to bear in mind with your particular IT setup. Is your laptop or computer capable of Bluetooth? If not, then the Silhouette nor the Cricut might not be the best options for you.
You can connect them with a cable still, though.
Yes.
So you can run a USB.
Yeah, you can go USB. It depends. If your laptop's in one room and your Cricut's in another, you might not want to run a huge USB between the 2. Yeah, it's an option that's available to you if you want to use it.
And I think the Bluetooth has to be above level 4.
Has to be above level 4 for the Silhouette.
The Silhouette.
Yeah, Silhouette is a little bit more picky when it comes to Bluetooth than the Cricut is. That's something else to bear in mind as well. So if you have an older laptop that is Bluetooth compatible, again, Cricut may be a better option over Silhouette. Everyone can access the free software for ScanNCut. So on computer you have CanvasWorkspace, which you can access online, and as a desktop version for Mac and Windows PCs. If you're on Linux, use the online version. Chromebook, again, cannot run CanvasWorkspace desktop. Just bear that in mind, so you will be limited to the online version on Chromebooks. If you have an iPad or an Android tablet, there's an app called Artspira, which allows you some of the functionality that you get in CanvasWorkspace for your ScanNCut without having to go all the way to having a computer. It also does have some additional features that CanvasWorkspace doesn't have, so it is worth having both platforms if you have the ability to do so that you can compare and contrast. Now, the reason why we're starting at the machine rather than at the software is your ScanNCut can actually run entirely without a computer, should you wish to do so. It is the only cutting machine that has inbuilt designs out of the main 3. So this saves time, because if you want to just cut a square and you know what size you want it, you can do it on the machine without even turning on your computer. And that goes the same for any designs. So you have thousands of designs within your machine, off the top of my head, and you will be able to create thousands more by combining them, resizing, repurposing. So some designs are made up of multiple shapes that you can actually separate out and use bits of as you need to, and makes it really versatile. And of course there's hundreds of videos showing you exactly how to do that. Do you want to just quickly flick on the screen so that you can actually see a screen? There we go. So I have Ian doing the wonderful camera work. Fights back if I do it. So there we go. The screen sizes do vary between models. I have the SDX 1200, which is the largest screen you can get. You know, getting to a certain age, larger screens help. You want to just tap OK?
I don't know if you want to explain what.
Right, okay. So when you first start it up, unlike the Cricut that you kind of heard just does its little whoosh and away you go, you will actually get like a startup noise with the SDX and the CM, and it's basically it calibrating itself just to kind of get started. Do that on the CM without the blade installed, otherwise you can sometimes chip your blade. So just something to bear in mind. So if you tap OK, it's really quiet on the SDX. So that's the next point, is if you want a machine that's going to be quiet, go for the SDX. Fantastic. CM is a lot noisier by comparison. So if you are working in a kind of confined space, if you're in a flat, for instance, where you've got people below you, or if you're working after a side room and don't want to disturb people, the SDX is going to be much more friendly to others. So you can see straight away we're given the option of pattern or scan, and that's the same whether you are on a CM or an SDX. Just the SDX then has a few more options by scrolling left or right on the little arrows. Ably demonstrated. There you go. And if you go into pattern, just to give you a few ideas of what you can do directly on the machine, we have basic shapes, designs, pre-styled sentiments, borders. Then you've got your custom text, so where you want to create a word of your own. And then we have drawing, and if you scroll down, we have further lettering options that are specific to tasks, so stencils or applique. Then we have our quilting patterns, applique patterns, and then we have our stencils. So you typically find that you stay in that top 6, but occasionally I do dip into the designs below. Basic shapes are a great place to start. So much that you can do with just your basic shapes and kind of build from there. Now, one of the things you can't do on a machine is subtract. So that's just something to bear in mind, that you end up needing to kind of think a little bit out of the box when you want to create frames and then mold things to frames. So can you just go back to that last screen?
Sorry.
We had a question about donuts, and those bottom 3 designs at the left, if you want to do a little bit of a pointer there, that's how you can do a donut on your machine. So you kind of pick how much of a thickness you want for your outside frame, and they can size it. Unfortunately, you can't size the aperture, it just goes with it. If you want to just do a donut and not weld anything to it, you can do it using circles. Just overlay the 2, and then there's line functions that you can do. We'll do a little bit on a donut in a minute. Or you can just literally cut a donut. So if you can think of like your emoticons on your phone, chances are you find something similar in your brother. So I think it's like the most common elements that you're going to want to cut, it's put on the machine. So I can still honestly say I still haven't cut all of the designs yet. I haven't got that far. There you go. So scanning, as I said, you can use it in a multitude of ways if you just want to go into scan. So you have direct cut, where you are scanning to cut out the material you have on the mat. You have scan to cut data, so if you want to scan a template for later use, if you want to do multiple sheets but you don't want to cut out like your base sheet, then scan to cut data is the way to go. And then you have scan to USB, which is where we can actually use our ScanNCut as an image scanner rather than tracing it. And you can finally scan to CanvasWorkspace, so we can pull that straight into image tracing on our computer. And I will get in a little bit more involved in that in a minute. So let's hop on over to CanvasWorkspace. There we go. And we have projects in much the same vein as the Cricut design space. So if we go on a project, it's going to offer up which mats you need. So you pick a mat and work on a mat. You cannot have multiple mats open at one time on CanvasWorkspace. So that's, again, something for you to consider when you're thinking about which platform is going to work best for you. If you are kind of very much, I just need to focus on one thing at a time and then go do the next bit and the next bit, quite methodical, then you're going to find that CanvasWorkspace is actually probably going to be your preferred platform.
Does any of the software offer multiple mats?
Yes.
Which one?
Silhouette. So Silhouette is a lot more designer friendly. So in terms of pre-built designs, you've got the projects that you see at the beginning. You have pattern collections. Now these are where you've purchased activation cards, and then you do have a link to Disney. Now I don't have any Disney content, so there's no point in showing you that. And then we have our main CanvasWorkspace layout. So following the same vein as the machines, so it's not like they're two totally different platforms. You have your basic shapes first and foremost. You have your borders, and you don't have all of the designs that are on your machine in CanvasWorkspace, but everything is CanvasWorkspace is on your machine up to a point. So this is that point. So we have your same sentiments, but you're going to find that there are more sentiments on your machine, particularly in higher models, than what you get in CanvasWorkspace. And you also have your premium add-ons. So I have the paper piercing kit, and it's going to come up with its own icon. So when you first have CanvasWorkspace, you're going to see these three, and then as you add new things to your machine, it's going to add new functionality into Canvas as you go. So it's a shame in some ways that you can't preview what you're going to get as part of the kit, but on the other hand, it's a nice surprise when you open it. So we have lots of designs that get added as we go through, and you can play with those as you wish. I also have the vinyl water blade, so again that's a separate add-on, and we can float these panels as well, so it can move them around and play with them and all kinds of wonderful things to help us out when we're designing. Text, again, type, click, type, enter, and away you go. So I'm going to be boring and go, hello, and it's going to put that text on there, and you can style it, size it the same way as what you do in Design Space. The difference being is that when we want to start shaping that text, there are differences there. So we can create curved text, we can put text on a path, and so on and so forth, all within the desktop version of CanvasWorkspace. For basic text tools, you can go for the online one, but for anything that is that little bit more advanced, so fonts that are on your computer, you can only use in the desktop version of CanvasWorkspace. You can only curve text in CanvasWorkspace on desktop. You can't do it online. I think you can do it in Artspira as well. And that's pretty much it, isn't it, for text? Online, you've only got like 6 fonts that you can choose from. So it's worth downloading the desktop if your machine can run it, and so that you can do those extras. We can import SVGs in, and if I go to that, it's going to come up with your desktop and just go through to your files, and away you go, import that in. You can also use that for importing in FCM files as well. So if you've already created something, export it to FCM, lost your original file, you can still retrieve it that way. So don't panic. Image tracing is where you're going to be wanting to work with bitmap image to export it into a format that you can cut.
That's an additional pack.
So you have basic image tracing within CanvasWorkspace, and then you can choose to add in the enhanced image tracing, and it's worth getting that extra feature. Okay. The difference being is how it traces. So in your basic, it can go by color, but in terms of your enhanced image tracing, it goes not just by color, but also by what you tell it. So you can actually edit how it's tracing. You can tell it to ignore areas. You can tell it to make sure it includes areas as well. So it's definitely one to play with, and one that I've done a video on previously, haven't I, on the enhanced. So it's worth going in and checking that out. And if I can find a link, I will post it probably in the chat. And again, in Design Space, you can import a PNG and go from there. So it's not a unique feature in that sense, but what is unique is having that scanner built into the machine. An external scanner can be useful for if you need to scan something that is 3-dimensional that you want to apply a design to. So similar to how you have a positioning tool in Cricut, you could potentially scan your object that you want to design onto, scan it, import it. Don't necessarily have to use the image tracing function though. So rather than importing it through image tracing, we can just import from your computer, and that just brings it in as a flat image that we can design over the top of. If you have the Print to Cut add-on, that is also how you can import images for printing and cutting out. So just something to bear in mind.
You also import embroidery design.
Yeah, that's a whole different ballgame, embroidery. So PES and PHX files are compatible with some models of the ScanNCut, and it is important that if you want to use these particular file types, do a lot of research on the Brother website about which models can actually accept those files and which can't, and how it all works. Because if you have different models, they have different ways of working with those files. If it's something that you really want to get into, then my advice would be to go for the top of the range ScanNCut that will connect through to their embroidery machines, and away you go. But that is beyond my budget at the moment, to be honest. When the embroidery machine that goes with it is heading up there for 5 figures. So, you know, just bear that in mind, that, you know, if you suddenly inherit a lot of money, win the lottery, then that might be the way that you want to go. But yes. And the other thing to say about those particular machines is the only way to get those is to go through a brother sewing centre. So that's just something to bear in mind. And there are some really good ones up and down the UK. In America, you've got your brother centres over there too that you can get that machine from. So, talking about pros and cons, the bonus is that you don't have to use the computer with your ScanNCut. You have that option to just go direct to the machine. There. And of course you do have that touch screen that is nice and easy to use. It doesn't really use complicated terminology, but sometimes the iconography can get a bit interesting. It's easy to get hold of supplies in terms of it's non-brand specific. It doesn't mind what you put in to it in terms of your actual materials that you are cutting. It's often quite forgiving, actually, compared to some of the cutters. The CM models in particular can handle your kind of finer materials that you might struggle to cut otherwise, so things like your masking, tissue, things like that. You get lots of designs free of charge, so you're not worrying about a monthly subscription, which is a big bonus in my view. There is a monthly subscription available on Artspira, should you wish to, for premium files, as it puts it. Personally, I think once you get used to the designs that are in the machine, you'll be away and onto creating your own. There is a roll feeder available for the SDX models, but not for the CMs. That's just something to consider when you're wondering which model to go for. You have regular software updates in terms of the firmware for your actual machine. CM models, that's kind of stopped for, but again, the most recent update for them is worth doing. And of course you have internal storage as well. So you have the internal storage in the machine itself that you can save to. You can save to USB memory sticks as well, so you're not limited by the space on the machine in terms of quantity that you can store, just in terms of what you can quickly access.
And you can transfer it to your computer and save it on your computer.
Yeah, and you can always transfer it to your computer. Cons. There are limits to its capabilities without a PC or laptop. So things like cutting frames, for instance, we can't use Subtract on the machine itself, although it can weld. So, which is where we're adding two shapes together to make one. Not all third-party accessories work. So while both the Cricut and the Silhouette can handle mats from third parties without being at all fussy, the ScanNCut is not the same. The ScanNCut has registration marks on the mats, so if your mat doesn't have registration marks, it's not going to work. Whereas I used the ScanNCut mat on the Silhouette just fine, it didn't care. You just have to scroll it along to get to the sticky part, basically. But we will talk about that in a minute. Extra designs can be costly, so things like the activation cards can be quite costly, difficult to get hold of, not available in all countries. So I did mention Print to Cut, which isn't currently available in the US. No idea why, but there are ways and means around that. There are sites out there that you can purchase the code from, and all you need is the code to kind of get those to work. Same with things like the ScanNCut link for Illustrator. So whereas the Cricut can't use Illustrator at all, there is a plugin that you can use for your ScanNCut, so that you can use that in Adobe Illustrator. And if you are familiar with that program, and you're paying for that program anyway, you're going to love what you can do with it with the ScanNCut link. There is no roll feeder for CM models, so whereas both Cricut and Silhouette have roll feeders for both of their 12-inch machines, you can't get one for a CM. I also have another con. It is the regular software update. So while, yeah, it's fantastic having regular software updates, sometimes you do find that they cause issues. So I do tend to hold off doing updates straight away, just to see what everybody else is struggling with, and see whether that's something that either, if it occurs, I can overcome or work around and go from there. But if you do ever do an update and you need to roll it back, just speak to Support Brother, and they're very good. Another con in terms of the internal storage is sometimes it relies a lot on your organization rather than its own organization, because file names are not necessarily user-friendly.
You can't edit it on the machine.
And you can't edit it on the machine. You need to edit it on a computer. So, which is great for USB stick. You know, you take USB stick out of machine, stick it in the computer, and you can just relabel everything on there. But for internal memory, you cannot do that. So that's just something to bear in mind. Keep a little book with what each design is, because it's not always obvious. And it typically has like a U and then a number for the image tracing and so on and so forth. So just go from there. Anything I haven't covered yet on the ScanNCut?
Don't think so. Well, that covers most of it. So.
Okay. Okay, so finally onto Silhouette. Now, Silhouettes you can have in 3 main variations: the Cameo, the Portrait, and the Curio. So the Cameo is the one that I have. I have a Cameo 4. It's just the regular size one. And the advantage of the Cameo is that you can get it in larger widths. So if you are working on larger mats... Oh, I just realised I forgot a Cricut. Not only that, but yeah, it's the Cricut Venture I forgot. So the Cricut Venture, very quickly, 24-inch width, runs on a 45-degree angle, huge. And again, it's one of those machines that if you need it, in terms of that size, it's worth going and having a look at. It does limit your materials in some ways though. Okay, so Cameo, Portrait, Curio. Portraits are typically A4 size, and it's good for print to cut. Cameos are your 12, 16 and 24, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going up in sizes. And your Curio, I'm going to be discussing the Curio 2. So when you're looking at which ones I'm talking about, it's the Curio 2 that you want to have a look at. So again, this is another one where it needs you to have a computer. So I have put up the software in the top left, but very quickly, it has a power button on the right hand side. If you...
Now you're testing me.
I am.
Put some.
And it has nice bright LED buttons, so do apologise for the blur a little bit. It's just one of those things when you're filming. Glowing, and it glows across the top too, which you can't see just at the moment. There you go. So very swish looking machine. You have a matte load and unload button, which is your up and down arrows on the right hand side, as well as a bright blue button, which is your Bluetooth. So at the moment, that same Bluetooth is on and can be contacted by your software. You may have seen at the beginning, it also lit up with 4 arrows and a pause button. The pause button is obvious. If you're in the middle of something and something goes wrong, hit the pause button and then you can cancel it from the software if need be, or readjust the material, whatever it may be. The 4 arrows just basically control where you start that blade from. So like I said, if you get really stuck for a mat but you have a scan and cut mat, you can load your scan and cut mat and just scroll down to where the sticky is, and it will treat it like a 12 by 12 mat, and away you go. Been there, done that. Yes, so at the front of the machine you can see that you've got a little drawer. So where other machines use that space for storage, it uses it for a roll feeder. You're going to pop it right out. Now if you're working on a desk, which is easier, that bit will come out flat and you'll be well away. Now I'm going to help you in here because this is going to be a little bit fiddly to do. So you have a back bit that flips up, and that's where you're going to feed your material through. Then you have 2 little side legs here that we pop up. Roll inserts in here, and then you can just gently push the 2 together so that the roll will fit. And you can see you've got the ability to have rolls that go from there all the way to there, and away you go. So you've got a really good mix of sizes that you can work with.
That's cutter across the back as well.
Yep, it has the cross trimmer across the back that you can change the blades on as you need to as well. So it's not a case of once you've worn that out, you can't do it again. Now this bit is a little bit fiddly. Getting it back in.
You just have to get it over
there. We go.
It's got little stoppers that stop it falling in.
And then we can tuck that back in there. And do you want to see if you can show the cross trimmer? That's a fun challenge for you. I will close the lid so that you can get round the back. So down a bit.
Hang on, let me move that out of the way. There's camera, so it has a... Is that the bit?
That's the bit that pops out so that you can replace it.
Right.
And it has a little slidey trimmer, so that when you are using the roll feeder, basically, once you've cut your material, you don't have to have it feed back through onto the roll. You can just trim it across the back. And it really does depend on how confident you are that you've cut it properly.
That should allow that. Oh, there we go.
And it just slides across.
That locks it in place. So these bits, I don't know if you can see those.
Can't. There we go. Down a bit.
No.
You could almost see it. A little bit more. There we go. So just there.
They lock in place, and then that releases your cutter.
Okay.
And when you're not using it, you've got one each side, which then
lets your material feed back through.
Lock back in place, and then that locks that, so you can't.
Okay. And in terms of the machine itself, if you just want to open the flap back up, you've got a 2-tool carriage. That's the auto blade, which is an auto blade and isn't an auto blade. So basically all the auto blade does is just set this figure here for you automatically, so that when you're setting it in the software, it's going to update the machine so you don't have to do it manually, which is useful if you're cutting lots of different materials at once. You can say that that particular cut is that one. So if you've got multiple materials on the mat, you can set it to different colored lines, and so that you can actually set your blade by material, which is really useful. And we have blade storage that tucks away in there. So that's just for a single blade. And we can pop that back too. And there you go. Your rollers do actually move as well, on both the Cricut and on the Silhouette. So that if you need to, you can readjust. So the only one that has static rollers is the ScanNCut. And you can see on the Silhouette, it's usefully got little arrows as to where to adjust them to. And it's got little notches as well, so you can feel when you're in the right place. And there are lots of blades, tools that you can use. So for instance, it has a tool that can weed for you. So it'll do a little punch mark showing you where to weed. So if you are doing lots of really intricate cuts, that's going to be your best friend. Likewise, if you're doing lots of vinyl cutting, that roll feeder is a godsend. In terms of the latest models, so the Cameo 5, that second carriage is the powered one, I believe, and that enables you to do things like hot foiling without having to use a separate tool like the foil quill. So they actually have their own that you can just go and hot foil with straight away. So a little bit different to the Cricut foiling tool. So the Cricut foiling tool works on pressure. The Silhouette one works on heat and pressure. Just something to bear in mind. It also has some really funky powered blades, but yeah, worth having a look at the Cameo 5. And same with the Curio. Curio has extra tools as well, but I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. And we're looking at the software. Okay, so welcome to Silhouette Studio 5, and this is the software that we use to control our silhouette, but can also be used for designing and exporting to SVG for other cutters once you get up to the top level. So I've started my Silhouette Studio in Standard Edition, so this is the version that you get free with the Silhouette, but you can upgrade it as you need more features, or just dive straight in with the Business Edition should you wish. Okay, so homepage, we can see that we have some different tutorials that we can work through. We have our files that we've used recently. We have some additional designs that we can choose from, or we can just go to the store button if you're in the updated version of Silhouette Studio, which isn't shown at the moment, but that's, I did have a few issues recording this video, so I tried going back a version. So just ignore that, and there is a store button there, you just can't see it. Okay, so Design Store has a monthly subscription for a fixed number of credits. You can use credits to redeem against the designs that you want to use. So it's a bit more friendly for those users that maybe don't need new designs every 5 minutes. So if you're an occasional crafter, or if you just tend to design for friends and family who have specific occasions, then that's going to be more your cup of tea. Whereas if you're more of a career crafter, Cricut might be more the way to go. Okay, so with the software open, we're going to go into design, and we can see the mat, and up on the right hand side we have a page setup. Now you're going to want to work through this panel before you do anything else, and it's going to ask you really simple basic questions. First of all, which machine? And because I've already had the Cameo 4 connected, it's going to automatically want to go to the Cameo 4. The feed type. So this will vary by the machine that you have. If you have a portrait, manual is your only option, and you know, where you go. If you have the Cameo with the auto sheet feeder, you can also use the auto sheet feeder. And the Curio has a flat cutting bed, which is quite fun to play with. So rather than having a sticky kind of flat base that you're cutting on, you have an electrostatic, and you can have an electrostatic mat for the most recent Silhouette models. Electrostatic is good in that you're not relying on adhesive to hold your card in place. And it means that instead we can just not have a sticky residue left on that card. So if you want to cut front down for delicate materials, then you can do that without having to worry about any residue being left behind from your mat. So once you've set up your document, you have tools down the left hand side for you to create your designs with, and then you have tools down the right for editing. If you think of it that way, it's a little bit easier. So we have the ability to create vectors using our point editor. We can create a simple line. We can do a polygon using our lines. We can create a curved shape, so think like an elastic rubber band to create with that one. You can draw an arc, so if you want to do things like glue tabs, nice and easy with nice curved edge, you can do that. You have your basic polygons, so you have rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse and polygon. And with the polygon, draw it onto your mat like so, and you can see that it has a little slider inside for going how many sides you want. So we can go down to 3 and up to 60. So you only really notice the difference once you get into like the 20 and below. So just bear that in mind. You have a center point here, so we can use that to create our size difference. We can rotate it, and there we go. Fun things to do. Now this is all in the standard edition, so this is what you get free with your machine. So there's more tools as you go up through the ranks. You have a freehand tool, you have the text tool, you have the note tool, which is the real standout feature of using Silhouette Studio, in that we can actually create a note. So anywhere, just click on the mat and you can do a little post-it note. So instead of having your desk filled with post-it notes, you can fill your document with them instead. So it might be, cut this from gold glitter. And you can go speed, oh, I like that, speed 1, blade, whatever, and then so on and so forth, should you wish. And we can delete them too. We have an eraser, and we can treat shapes in 2 ways in Silhouette Studio. We can treat it as an outline, so if I use the eraser tool on the outline, you can see it just takes that line away and we basically cut the rest of the shape. So that's useful for when you want to create something that flaps. So it could be a glue tab, it could be whatever, just it's going to remain attached to the card that you are cutting it from. So if I go and step back and undo, click on the solid, and instead the eraser is going to erase a path. Okay, and we can create lots of now, just case in point here, if I raise in the center section here without touching the outside line, it's not going to do it. So you need to start from the outside. So we've created something that we can kind of nibble away at and have something that is a bit more organic. So just to bear in mind. So let's delete that for now, just because it's going to be much quicker to draw another polygon. There we go. And this time we're going to go to the knife tool and we can just cut through. And we don't have to cut all the way through something, but we can do partial cuts as well. So again, this is useful for if you want to create a flap where you've got like a lid going over a box, for instance, and you want to do like the two little notches that you get at either end of the flap to help keep a box locked shut. There's an example of the knife. So let's delete that out. And now on this right hand side we have lots of tools that are going to help us edit shapes. So we can set a fill color. So if you want to do print and cut working directly in Silhouette, you can set your printing colors as well as using gradients. And also if we go on this last one, we've got patterns that we can put in too. So really useful for designing for print and cut. We have line style. Now line style is interesting in that how we colour our edges, so to speak, actually can dictate how a file cuts. So we can use multiple colours to actually set different material types or how we potentially cut items. So I'll get onto that a bit more detail when we get to the send screen. But we've got the option to actually treat our lines as printable elements too. So you can see that we can change colour, we can change the weight and the thickness, we can change our corners and even how our open lines finish at the ends. So much like other design software like Affinity, Illustrator, that type of thing. If you're familiar with those, you'll be used to setting those types of things on your lines. You can also select whether that print line will print or if you just want to keep it as a reference for the design software itself. So you can see that it also has a little bit more detail as to how it's going to actually work with that particular option. We have tracing. So in much the same way as you can image trace in the other two platforms, we can do that in Silhouette Studio too without having to go up a level or anything like that. And you can select an area of a trace, pick your thresholds, and away you go, whether you want it to trace that entire image, if you want it to trace just the outer edge of the image, and then you've got trace and detach. So that means that basically when you're tracing an image, it can be locked to that image, which is your basic trace option. And when you move the image, the line goes with it. So it's nice and easy to keep that kind of maintained. Trace and detach is useful for if you want to then create an offset border around something, for instance. Then you want to trace and detach. We have a transform panel, so we can work with the scale, the rotation, the alignment, all under that same heading. We can replicate, which is useful if we need to create like a mirror image. So if you want to create a shaped card front and you want it to do a shaped back, we can do that so that it will actually mirror.
And HTV.
Yeah, HTV, essential that you mirror. So fonts, it uses all the ones that are in your computer. So rather than being stuck with a limited set, straight away out of the gate, you get to use all of them. Print and cut is not a separate item you need to pay for, which is a big bonus, and it is registered as well. So those registration marks basically means that where you've told it to cut, it will cut. It can be a little bit fiddly to get used to, so just bear that in mind. And if you're going to do print and cut, make sure that you choose the correct media size in your page setup. So if all you can print is A4, make sure you say A4. It's going to grey out the rest of the mat. And then in print to cut, we can go enable registration marks. It's going to put them in. Don't put anything that is in the kind of shaded area around here, otherwise it won't see it and you could potentially stop the registration marks scanning. And you can do bleed and all kinds of manner of things in here, so it is a lot more focused on you being the designer than the Cricut is. So you're very much in charge of your silhouette. Here you have your modify tools. So we had a question on donuts. So let's very quickly, you're going to get a circle, and let's draw another circle, and we'll select the two like so. Let's go to transform, because that's how we're going to do our alignment. We align center and middle, and make sure we still have both selected when we go to modify. And we're going to go subtract, and then we have a donut shape. So if I stick a fill in that so we can see what we've actually done, you can see we have a donut shape. So the important command there is subtract. Now you can do that in any of the design platforms for any of the machines. The keyword is that subtract, and it all works the same way. And as you get used to design, you're going to find that those modify commands are going to be the things that really help you out from not having to draw really complex shapes. So weld is adding them together, subtract is taking away, and then as you get more confident, you'll get into intersect, divide and crop separately. And unlike the CanvasWorkspace, you can use compound paths and create compound paths in Silhouette Studio, whereas CanvasWorkspace can only have them imported. It can't actually create them.
What's a compound path?
A compound path is where you have more than one complete path as a shape. So, case in point, a donut. That is a compound path because it has two distinct lines, but it's one shape. There you go. But yeah, compound paths can get really complex with like multiple lines. So a good way of telling if a software can create a compound path is if you have two shapes that don't overlap that you can weld into one shape, and that's a compound path. So I think things like a semicolon will be a good example. Compound path, one shape. Okay, so that's kind of where you start out with your initial view of starter mode. If we go to show more, it's going to show you a couple of other things. So we've got offset. Now, sketch and stipple is an interesting one. Sketch you can do on any of the Silhouette machines. We have stipple. Now, stipple can rely on a particular tool or a particular model. So it will depend on what you have as to whether you can use it. The good news is your user manual is a free download off the Silhouette website. And also, if you can't do it, it won't let you do it. So we can set up things like stipple areas and things so that you can actually create a background. It's fun stuff. Speciality tools, again, you're going to find that that is going to vary by your model as to what you can do. If you have your embossing tool for your particular machine, you can deboss and emboss, and so on and so forth. We've got scoring, print and emboss. Again, you can see Curio. So this is where your individual models are going to really show a difference. The Curio has a lot more features that it can do that are speciality. So power engraver, you're going to need an up-to-date Cameo, I believe, where you have the actual powered tools. So where I was saying about the powered foiling earlier, that's another one. So there we go, the heat pen, you need a Cameo 5 for, or the Curio 2. Lever punch, again, needs a Curio 2, and it will tell you as you go through what you need for what. And then it does actually have the ability to send to a 3D printer. That's just something to bear in mind if you happen to have one. So the Ultra series is actually being discontinued. So if you have an old one, then you'll be familiar with the software. Okay, we have the Pick Scan mat, which is an additional purchase rather than being included with the machine, but you do have the option there, and you can either use a camera or you can use a scanner. So if you want to stick your mat in the scanner and do it that way, you can do. Image effects, so again, based in the print to cut section, really. It's not going to do anything in terms of how you're actually cutting, but it is going to control how you're printing. And then you have a fun pop-up section. So if you want to create a pop-up element in an insert of a card, for instance, you have that there that you can actually play with, and it's going to help you work in that manner. So those are kind of your basic tools, and if you get to the point where you just want to have it a bit more normal, quote unquote, you can turn off starter mode. Now down in the bottom left we have a little tab that's going to come out, and that's got your library. So this is where all your downloads are going to go. So you can see that you've got fonts in there that you can use, we've got designs, and if you're going to ebooks, you even got your manual to hand. So you haven't got to go hunting for it. It's right there for you to access and look at.
Did you say it could do multiple mats? How does that work?
Okay, so across the top here, you can see that we've got our first mat. If we want to add another mat, it's just a case of click on the plus and add a new mat. So you can have multiple documents open at once, which is really useful if you've got the sentiment that you really like in one project file and you need to put it in another project file, rather than having to open, copy, close, hope that it stays in the menu when you get into the other one. You can just literally go between the two, nice and easy. And we can close them as well, just using the little X there. So that's the standard version, and let's go to send actually before I go up a version. So we have the library button there, which is another way of accessing our library. And we've got patterns as well, which I didn't mention. There is a recycle bin too, so if you do delete something, it's going to go in the recycle bin, and it empties when you close the software.
Oh, so it doesn't keep it.
If we go to send, you're going to hear that your machine wakes up, and it will come through eventually. Now, like I said, it is Bluetooth connected. If that doesn't work, then you can use a USB cable as well. Mine's being a bit dense at the moment because it should do is go to the Bluetooth one and go, it is available.
That's not the Bluetooth, is it?
No, it's trying to do it via USB, even though it's woken up over there just fine. So we have two tool holders, so we can set the cut settings in there as we wish, and we can get more advanced too. So if you want to go to the guide, it's going to talk you through connecting. Like I said, it's being a bit dense at the moment, but that's fine. We have a standard, which is basically cut everything on the mat as one setting and away you go sort of thing. So if you've just got a really basic design, standard is absolutely fine. Cut by line colour, as I was hinting at earlier, is a really good way of separating out materials on your mat. So if you've got several different materials, you can set by colour on here, and each one can have a different setting. So it could be that you're setting it to, so that red is cutting with your standard blade and it's cutting from a piece of vinyl as it is at the moment. Or you can just click on the drop down and we can choose from one of the many presets. So while a lot of these will be based on Silhouette materials, a lot of them you can just adapt. So if I go to, let's say, the flocked HTV, so it's thinking the Silhouette flocked HTV, but we can still go in and actually modify the settings down at the bottom for you to go through and then onwards. And you can also cut by colour. So this is really useful if you've got a mat where you've got lots of different colours in your design, but you don't want to have to spend the time faffing about organising all the mats and you've only got 12 by 12 pieces of vinyl. You can just cut by fill colour. So that's your kind of standard version, but you actually have options with the software. So if I go down to view in, we actually have 4 versions of Studio that we can use. Standard edition is the free one that you get included with your machine. You then have 3 upgrade options and each one is going to change what you have access to. So I would advise going into real depth to see which is the right one, getting the right one first time. So personally, I went all the way up to business edition straight out the gate. So let's jump into business edition. So this is everything. And even though we're in business edition, we still have that ability to do starter mode if you want to have that kind of hand-holding experience when you're just learning it. You're going to see that we now have flex shapes that we can use. We have an eyedropper as well so that we can pick out colours. In terms of your page setup, nothing much is going to change. But you are going to see that you've got a lot more buttons down here than what we had previously, and some of the functionality is going to change as well. So things like your transform panels suddenly moved up, and yeah, you've got your media layout. Now this one is really useful, particularly if you are using the roll feeder and you want to save material. So basically, if you think like you have multiples of the same design and you wonder how little material you can get it into, then the media layout setup is the one to go for. It relies on you setting up your media size and your mat size correctly in your page guide setup, but then you can also if we tick the show media layout split screen, it's going to be nice to me today. Come on. Let's give it so that we can, let's go for, that one's right. And we're going to go for 12 by 24. And probably want to turn off the registration marks as well, that would help. So let's go to the, where's my little registration marks? Oh, there we go. Turn those off. That's going to complicate ourselves. So show media layout, and it's going to show you how it's going to lay out to cut. So you can see, although we've got it positioned middle of the mat here, straight away it's ignoring everything we've done in terms of layout, and it's gone, right, okay, I'm going to put that in the top corner to try and save as much space as you like. You can then tell it how many rows and columns you want it to have. So if we say 6 rows, and it's going to go, well, hang on, you've only said that you've got a 12 by 24 mat here. So at the moment it's limiting to media. So let's go, okay, maybe not then. Let's go back in here, and we'll custom size according to our roll. So if you've got a huge long roll, we can go up and above. So it's going to automatically limit to 24, but if you've got a roll, you can literally size that to the length of your roll. So if you've got a 10-meter roll, feel free. And then when we go to rows, we can go, okay, how many can you fit to that length? We can also change the separation, which is the spacing between them. So if we want to have them right up close to each other, we can do. And it should enable you to do columns as well, but it's been a bit dense today. Like I said, I did have to go back to version, so maybe that's an issue. Nesting. Nesting is a fun one. So if you are creating something where you're going to have the centers of the shapes covered, so typical example would be matting and layering for a card or scrapbook layout, then you can nest your cut lines so that you're cutting multiple shapes within shapes. So it's quite niche skill, but it's still a useful one to have. And tiling, so those of you who are familiar with the vinyl water blade from the ScanNCut know that that enables tiling in CanvasWorkspace. Tiling is basically where you want to cut bigger than your mat, so you're doing it in sections. So typical example would be if you wanted to create signage, if you wanted to create things like sewing patterns is a really good one for tiling actually. So a lot of those are provided tiles, but you could actually create your own tiled patterns using Silhouette Studio. Fun thing to do. Other big differences. So you've got weeding lines, so that it can do your weeding lines for you. Again, that's something that you have to pay extra for in CanvasWorkspace as well. And again, I don't think that's even an option in the Cricut one. If it is, I haven't found it yet. Now, here's a fun one that the other two don't really do. CanvasWorkspace in particular, it definitely won't do this willingly. And that's warping. So we can warp when we're wanting to apply vinyl onto a non-flat surface. So things like mugs, conical warps. So you can actually set the size of your object that you want to apply your vinyl to, and it's going to warp your vinyl to fit the shape. Really useful if you want to do things like full coverage of a pattern onto a mug. And you have the ability to do layers at business and designer levels. So whereas before in the standard edition we're designing entirely on the flat, so to speak, we can actually work with layers in higher editions. And rhinestones isn't a separate add-on, it is built into, I think you have to have design to get the rhinestones, but there you go. And again, a bit more on the nesting. We can create puzzles, fun thing, but quite niche. And again, that kind of follows on from the niche of the pop-up. And another fun thing that you can do with Silhouette that you can't do with any other platform, and that's create your own fonts. So this is a real fun thing to do. Basically, you print a template sheet out, you write in, like, with your best handwriting preferably, or get your family, friends to actually do one, and you can actually have their writing as a file that you can actually work with within Silhouette Studio. Really fun thing to do for family recipes, that kind of project where you want to do those memory keeping. And you can create your own digital fonts as well, and you can do spacing and things. Fun little side project to do as you get the time. And then you're back to your standard edition ones. What you are going to see as you go through the different options is your send screen is going to remain pretty much unchanged. Now, as they update, these screens do change a little bit. As I said, I've only gone back one version and I've lost this store button from up here. So as this video ages, there's going to be things that could potentially go away and some that get added. Just something to bear in mind. And I think I've covered everything.
Any pros and cons for?
So pros and cons for Silhouette. The built-in roll feeder and the cross trimmer definitely is a pro. The flat cutting platform on the Curio is also a real big plus for when we're creating with unusual materials. Again, it has a 2-tool carriage, and you do have that option of that dedicated weeding tool as well. Cons for the range. The Cameo and the Portrait, to be fair, the cutting pressure can be too weak for denser materials. So I did a project where I had all 3 of them potentially going to be cut in grey board, and out of the should actually clarify that a bit better. So I had a project where I had all 3 of my cutters, so the CM700, the SDX1200 and the Cameo 4. We were going to be cutting grey board, and only one of them could actually cut the design that I wanted to cut, which was the SDX1200. So that's just something to bear in mind. There's limited onboard blade storage, so whereas the Cricut and the ScanNCut SDX ranges have storage inside, the Silhouette only has that little drawer on the Cameo. The auto blade isn't actually automatic, or it's only automatic in that it basically dials whatever setting you put in the software. So that's just something to bear in mind.
Doesn't want to connect.
It doesn't want to connect today. I think because I've gone down a version, it's not seeing the Bluetooth. It just needs to go back up a version. Because it was fine the other day when I checked it. It wasn't misbehaving. Today it's misbehaved. Hey ho. So, to kind of bring the whole video to a close, in terms of which one to go for, very basically, if you are a beginner, you should look at the Cricut range, just because it's a little bit more supported out there, that you're going to feel a little bit more
handheld.
Yeah, a little bit more handheld. So if you've never worked with a cutter before, Cricut is probably a really good place to start. Silhouette is good for designers. So if you are wanting to always be designing straight from scratch and you want to have every tool at your fingertips, then Silhouette is the way to go. Particularly once you upgrade Studio to business level and you've got all those extra features that, quite frankly, not many other software can actually help you and support you with, without going for additional plugins that cost a fortune. And of course, it's got that built-in roll feeder. So if you are a vinyl cutter, you're going to love the Silhouette, and that's the one that you're going to want to run with. The ScanNCut is great for those that aren't late literate. It's much more, you don't have to have a computer. It doesn't really talk in jargon that much. It just talks in symbols.
Has 2 fabulous books written by you.
Yeah, it has 2 fabulous books written by me. I'm not very good at blowing my own trumpet, as you can tell.
Hours and hours of online content.
Oh yeah, hundreds of videos on this channel to kind of keep you going. And of course it has that all-important scanner. So if the scanner is going to be something you think you can get the use out of, if you're thinking, actually, I want something that could potentially replace an awful lot of weight in terms of dies, and you just want something that you can store designs on and point and click and away you go, then the ScanNCut is going to be the way to go for you. You know, create your own catalogue of designs on USB and away you go. There is a roll feeder that is available for it, but to be honest, if you're going down that route, you're probably going to want to swing towards the Silhouette, just because it's already built in and away you go. If you want to go kind of down the more boardy, woody route, as in the thinner wood veneers and things like that, then you're either looking at ScanNCut SDX or you're looking at the Cricut Maker. Print to cut and you're only going to be doing A4, you can get away with the Joy Xtra or the Silhouette Portrait. So go for the machine that is going to work for your craft and your ability. So they all do very similar things. The devil's in the details, isn't it? He's nodding at me, he's not saying anything.
Yes, but you have to get the machine that suits your needs rather than what you think. Do your research, I think, is the main come out of this, isn't it? That you have to research into what machine you want, what it can do for you.
Yeah, it's very individual choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it goes on your ability, your confidence, your area of interest. So, for instance, I'm slowly getting into soft crafts and sewing. So if I was to buy a new machine today, I would probably go for the ScanNCut, because its fabric is where it's at for it, isn't it? It's, you know, at the end of the day, it's even its file name is based on fabric cutting and not paper cutting. But there again, if you want a workhorse, you can't go wrong with a Silhouette, can you? Because, you know, we've done huge projects with the Silhouette, and we've done huge projects in terms of bulk for the Silhouette. That's probably the way I should go about it. So lots and lots and lots of cuts. Whereas the ScanNCut is good for literally huge projects where we've done huge lollipops and signs and lettering and things where you can piece it all together. So back to that tiling. So yeah, if you do have any specific questions, I am here to help, and almost here to test as well at the moment, with having all three kind of in circulation. So do reach out and ask questions, and if you want to see a video of them actually cutting, then do pop along and just say, can I see it do this? Can it do that? I mean, that's the type of questions that I love, isn't it? The can it do this? And I'll go, right, okay, I haven't done that yet, so let me go and see if I can do it. But yeah, it's good to give them a challenge. Any other points that I need to say, do you think?
No, I mean they're all roughly around the same pricing, aren't they? For
Yeah.
models,
Yeah, typically, you know, you're looking at the lower end models being around 150. So your Joy Xtra, your portrait, and your CM models as well, because you've got your 300, haven't you, still around? Just bear in mind the 300 doesn't have Wi-Fi. And then your top models are all sort of
5, 6.
Yeah, touching on the 500s. So between 3 to 5 typically is a good budget for a top of the range blade base cutter. Then as you go up to your laser cutters, you're typically looking at around £1,000 for a decent system with proper safety protocols in place. Ventilation is really important when it comes to laser cutting, actually, because our first system wasn't that safe, was it, dear? Oh, and if you do get a laser cutter, make sure you have a fire extinguisher handy. But yes, as a rule, fire blanket or fire extinguisher of some sort that you can extinguish should you need to. So with that all said, if you do have any questions, please put them in the comments in this video and I will answer, and probably go into quite a bit of depth because this is a real whistle stop tour of the different software and everything. So don't be afraid to ask questions. There isn't much I haven't done with my machines, is there?
No such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah, definitely no such thing as a stupid question. It's not stupid, it's not silly, and
nothing we haven't been asked.
Yeah, nothing we haven't been asked before. So I don't mind going through anything. Thank you for joining me. Do like the video and subscribe on either YouTube or Twitch, depending on where we end up going out. Preferably both. And if you want live in inverted commas support, then if you go to Discord, I do tend to have that more available than Facebook these days. So do use Discord rather than Facebook, and I will get back to you and hopefully usually have some examples to show as well. So take care and bye for now.